All right, let's get into it. We're talking about a geopolitical shift that could literally redefine the 21st century. It's all about India's high-stakes balancing act between the world's biggest powers.
The right choice is for our countries to be friends. Wow. Okay, so those words came from China's leader Xi Jinping speaking to India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi back in August 2025. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just some polite diplomatic chatter. No way. This was a huge deal. It signaled a massive thaw in relations, and it was all driven by one thing they both had in common: friction with the United States.
I mean, think about it. This was the first time these two leaders had met in Beijing in 7 years. 7 years. In modern geopolitics, that's practically an eternity, especially for two giants who share a border. So this handshake, it was a seismic shift, and it left everyone asking one huge question. Why now? What on earth changed? So let's unpack this surprise handshake in Beijing. To really get what's going on, you have to look west, all the way across the Pacific. The answer isn't in Beijing at all. It's actually found in the incredible pressure India was suddenly facing from, of all places, its biggest strategic partner for the last 25 years, the United States. All right, Section 2, the 50% tariff shock. This subtitle says it all. How economic warfare from Washington forced New Delhi to rethink everything. See, the thing that really kicked off this whole realignment, it wasn't a military threat. It wasn't another border skirmish. Nope. It was purely economic. You could even call it a kind of economic warfare, coming straight from a new administration in Washington, and it forced New Delhi to question, well, pretty much everything about its alliances.
Just look at that number, 50%. The sheer scale of the pressure here is just staggering. We're not talking about some minor trade dispute here. A sudden, punishing 50% tariff is an economic sledgehammer. It came down in August 2025. Now, the official reason was India's purchase of Russian oil, but believe me, the real impact was way, way broader than that. And here's what that 50% actually looks like in real money. This single move put nearly $87 billion of Indian exports to the U.S. at risk. Let that sink in. This was not a warning shot across the bow. This was a direct hit on the Indian economy. We're talking about a massive volume of trade, and the danger of key sectors just collapsing, well, it was immediate, and it was very, very real. And you can see the real-world consequences right here. This isn't some abstract economic theory you'd read in a textbook. These tariffs slammed right into the backbone of India's export economy. We're talking textiles, gems and jewelry, pharmaceuticals, even IT services. It was a move that, frankly, felt designed to inflict maximum pain. So the really crucial point to get here is that this was about so much more than just money. It was a fundamental break, a departure from 25 years of carefully building a partnership. In New Delhi, it was seen as a straight-up diplomatic humiliation, and it put absolutely everything on the line, from critical technology sharing to decades of defense cooperation. The whole relationship was suddenly at risk. Okay, so this brings us to India's new balancing act. The question is, how do you respond to something like that? Well, facing this completely unprecedented pressure, India didn't just sit there and take the hit. Not at all. It launched a radical strategic pivot, a whole new balancing act, designed to survive in this suddenly very hostile new world. And what you end up with is this tale of two partnerships, and they couldn't be more different. On one side, you have the U.S. partnership, which was under unprecedented strain. The old idea that support for India and Washington was bipartisan, yeah, that was gone. But on the other side, a totally new pragmatic dialogue was opening up with China. They were talking about everything, managing the border, even securing supplies of rare earth minerals. But here's the thing. This pivot wasn't just about cozying up to China. India's search for what it calls strategic autonomy was never going to be a simple switch, swapping out Washington for Beijing. It was all about creating options. And that meant doubling down and dramatically deepening its relationship with another global power, Russia. Just look at these numbers. They are absolutely staggering. I mean, look at that jump. Before 2022, India was getting less than 2% of its oil from Russia. By 2024, that number had skyrocketed to between 35 and 40%. This wasn't just about getting a good deal on oil. This was India making a very loud and clear statement about its own independent energy policy. And this right here, this is the core idea driving everything India is doing: strategic autonomy. What does that really mean? Well, it's the ability of a country to pursue its own national interests without being pushed around by other countries. It's the freedom to make your own choices, period. And in this case, it meant sourcing what it needed from whoever could provide it, no matter what anyone else had to say about it. So this all leads to a massive question. What does this mean for the future? This is truly a choice for the century. Where does India go from here? Well, most analysts see India standing at a historic crossroads with basically 3 different paths forward. And trust me, each one has huge consequences for the global balance of power. Okay, so let's look at these 3 possible futures. First, you've got a US-India reconciliation. Analysts put that at about a 30% chance. Then there's deepening the partnership with China, maybe a 40% chance. But the most likely path, the one with a 60% probability, isn't about choosing one side over the other. It's this much more complex strategy called multi-alignment. Basically, India just keeps doing this incredibly complicated balancing act with everyone.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that this whole crisis is forcing India's foreign policy to grow up, and fast. The goal isn't just about not taking sides anymore. The new goal is to actively engage with all of them. Success for India means navigating this brand new world to become a true leading power in its own right, not just a junior partner to someone else. And all of this leaves us with the one question that could define the rest of our century. Is this just a temporary disruption, a bump in the road before things go back to how they were? Or are we witnessing a permanent transformation, a complete once-in-a-generation realignment of global power that will force every single country to rethink, well, everything? That's the big question.